Good evening, everyone. It's Cole from Tactical Dalai Lama with a weekly update. This week, I want to talk about some speculative things. I want to talk about the NRA in particular. The NRA is facing several major problems right now. The most important one is the fact that Wayne LaPierre is still president, shows no sign of stepping down. In fact, if you follow Dwayne Liptak and other board members, you might notice that Wayne LaPierre seems to be solidifying his base on the various committees. So it looks like Wayne LaPierre is here to stay, which to me is an obvious, huge, glaring problem. 2. The NRA is involved in several very expensive, very dangerous lawsuits for the organization, between their own advertising agency and the NRA, and also between the NRA and Oliver North, and those are only the ones that I can think of quickly. These lawsuits have the capacity to cost the NRA not only millions of dollars, but also tons and tons and tons of integrity and respect out on what I would call the market of goodwill. So those things are creating the third problem. And the third problem is the NRA is about to have a huge financial problem because people are leaving the NRA. Well, what I really want to talk about tonight is what happens after the NRA. What are we going to do? What's it going to look like? Because at this point, there's a large possibility that the NRA cannot be salvaged or saved. The NRA to me is very much a relic. I have here something that is a relic of, it's not the same one I had when I was a kid, but it's very much a relic of my childhood in the sense that when I was a child I had one. My dad had one before me. It's a Red Ryder BB gun. A Red Ryder BB gun can be used to rapidly engage small, weak targets. And in that regard, it's still probably unmatched in that it's cheap to operate, fairly durable, cheap to replace. The NRA to me is a lot like this gun. We have outgrown it as a gun community and as a culture, but what comes next? When it comes to this kind of thing, there's two things that come next. You got the technical aspect and the social aspect. Right now at BB guns, it's pretty easy. We got break action, sound dampened BB guns on one end of the spectrum, and we have these high powered CO2 BB guns, some of which are also sound dampened, kind of on the other end of the spectrum. And for sport shooting, we also have various other air guns, such as paintball guns and airsoft guns. When it comes to the NRA, we don't have such a clear replacement. We have legal action groups such as Firearm Policy Coalition, Second Amendment Foundation, but we don't really have a big lobbying organization to take its place. So what I'm most worried about is that we'll lose our offensive capability, our capability to pass new laws that enhance our access to our Second Amendment rights, such as concealed carry reciprocity on the national side, but on the state side, so-called constitutional carry. These are the things that the NRA ILA has historically been able to back for us. Well, we're losing that capability when we lose the NRA. We're losing it on the national scale. So what comes next? And this is more of a question, a speculative question than an answer. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts in the comments. One, state and local organizations are going to have to step up. In many cases, they already have. I know in Minnesota, the Gun Owners Caucus there has really done some great things the last couple of years. I think in Virginia, they've done some stuff, and we saw a sudden spurt of grassroots gun owners doing useful legislative stuff right before the MAG ban went into effect in Vermont. Now, the trouble with these local things is a lot of times state houses run their politics almost in secret. People don't know what's happening, and it's only after a terrible bill for your rights has passed that people actually jump into action and try and do anything about it. So for this ground floor, grassroots, new organizations, statewide organizations that need to be doing the work to really accomplish anything, they have to be a lot more situationally aware. And that means several things. That means actually talking to your state reps, which in some cases we don't even know who they are, because that's just the nature of politics. We let things do what they do. And talking to them all the time, staying on top of their plans, and monitoring their activities while they're in the State House, which might mean someone has to volunteer just to go watch from your local organization. And nothing wrong with that. It's good to be politically active, and it's good to know what's going on, not just for gun rights, but for all of your rights. But this is something that historically local organizations have struggled to do. And that's pretty much the social aspect of it. Through social media, we can organize these drives. That in itself is not that difficult. The technical aspect of it is these judicial organizations that fight for us in the judiciary. My favorite one is Firearms Policy Coalition. As you'll probably know, I talk about it all the time. Very pleased with the work that they've done in California, but also I've been a huge advocate of the NRA ILA because of the things that they've done in Washington State when no one else seemed to really be able to do anything. We saw the assault rifle ban there, and the only people that have really stepped up to fight it are some very small local organizations, which is partly because Northwesterners are just independent people who don't really like getting together to do stuff like that, and Oregon is going to have to learn the lesson from Washington and get their asses in a big group and make a big stink if they want to keep any of their rights, from freedom of speech to gun rights to search and seizure rights, because Governor Kate Brown in Oregon is determined to destroy the entire state. That aside, please, on the individual level, learn from what happened in Washington. Washington went from a very lenient gun law state where you pretty much do anything you wanted to one where you now have to toe the line and be very careful or you end up a state felon. And it happened basically in the course of a few months, almost overnight. So let's be careful. Let's not let that happen in our states. Here in Colorado, we got to fight this mag ban that we've had now since 2013. But more than that, I expect there to be aggressive action from the blue counties to force through another mag ban and an assault rifle ban, so-called assault weapons ban, with no grandfather clause. And that's something that will have to be fought judicially here, because unlike Oregon, the state Senate cannot really dictate policy due to the fact that the blue counties are in several counties, Denver, Golden, Boulder. They're spread out over a wider area than they are in Oregon, where you really just have a few counties around Portland and then Lane County to worry about. So I really want you to think hard about what comes after the NRA. I think the NRA is worth saving, and I hope we can do it. But if we can't, well, first of all, a lot of these ideas that might help us after the NRA might help us save the NRA, or at least make it useful again. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters for all their help. We got to do some cool stuff last week with primary and secondary and in-range TV, and I promise every dime you give us will be put to some sort of use to either entertain you, protect your rights, or inform you, because that's pretty much what we care about on Tactical Dalai Lama. And like I said, feel free to share, comment, invite your friends. I think this discussion needs to be had, and I think it needs to be had now.